Today I want to talk about how I went from this to this. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about something I've been thinking about for quite a while now, and what that is my kayak fishing journey. What got me thinking about this is that I am in a Facebook group. The Facebook group is called Kayak Fishing Dads. If you are on Facebook and you are a dad and you love kayak fishing, I highly recommend you check it out. And one of the topics that I see quite a bit is folks that are just getting started in kayak fishing. And a question that comes up quite a bit is, should I start out with a paddle kayak or a pedal kayak? And I speak from personal experience because I've had both. I started out in a paddle kayak. It was an Ascend Bass Pro Shop Ascend FS12T. And then about a year and a half ago, I moved to a pedal kayak, and that's a Native Watercraft Titan 12. There is quite a bit of difference between the two, and as I said, this is a question I see come up quite a bit on the Facebook group I'm in. So I thought it'd probably be a good time to talk a little bit about it and kind of share my own personal experience. Another thing that got me thinking about it is I was kind of going through some of my Google Photos a while back, and I saw a kind of a collage I had put together, and it had a picture of me in both the Ascend and in the Native. So I thought, hey, this would be a great topic, especially since we do see these questions quite a bit. So that's kind of what prompted the reason for this video. As always, before I do get too far into this, I want to thank you all for tuning in. If this is your first time, appreciate you checking out the channel. Check out some of the other videos I've got. Hopefully, it'll grab your interest and you can subscribe, and also be sure to comment. I know I'm going to probably bring up a lot of information, and even with that, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that'll come up. So don't be shy about sending me any questions. Be sure and comment, and I always do my best to answer those, especially when I'm talking about something that I know is going to prompt a lot of inquiries. So again, be sure and post those questions. So with that background in mind, it's probably a good time to go ahead and get into some of the advantages and disadvantages. As I said, this is my own personal experience, and I know that there's probably going to be a lot more advantages and disadvantages that are going to be part of this journey for you as you start this yourself. But I'm giving my personal experiences, and at the same time, I have to kind of keep this short. I don't want to bore you all with a lot of information that may not be relevant. So I kind of picked the top three of both of these, and I figured I'd go through them one by one. So when we talk about advantages, the first thing, and probably one of the most important things, and this is what was a big deal for me, is that getting a paddle kayak is going to get you off the bank and on the water. That's a big deal, especially if you've been fishing for a while, you've seen other people out there on boats and possibly kayaks, and you're thinking, wow, if I could just get out there, I probably could do a lot better. That's not always necessarily the case, but at least it's something that gives you an advantage that you don't have being on the bank. You're a lot more mobile. You can move around to spots that you can't hit from the bank, and that's always going to help you out. Another thing is that with a paddle kayak, it's generally going to be a lower entry point financially. I mean, that's just common sense. As I said, for my kayak at the time, I spent $550, which was probably, I don't know, mid-level for an entry level kayak. Not real expensive. I was able to pay cash for it at the time, but again, it wasn't the cheapest out there either. So that's why I went with the Bass Pro FS12T. Another advantage is it's going to be generally lighter. The paddle kayaks are going to be generally lighter and easier to handle, and they're also great for rivers. So if you happen to be near rivers and not always doing lakes, paddle kayaks are generally better for river fishing. So then, as far as disadvantages, there's a few here as well. Again, I'm just going to talk about three that kind of come to my mind. One is that they are slower, and this is a big one for me. When I first started, I had a friend that I go fishing with occasionally, and at the time, he actually had a kayak that he had put a trolling motor on, and of course, with that, it was pretty much impossible for me to stay up with him. So I kind of was off on my own a lot of times. And that's the same if you're out fishing with buddies. Maybe some already have trolling motors or pedal kayaks, possibly Hobies. It's not always easy when you're paddling to stay up with a group, and it's just the way it is. Another thing is it doesn't take a lot of wind to keep you moving, even when you don't want to. Um, with a paddle kayak, you're pretty much at the whim of whatever direction the wind is going, and you're generally not going to want to go out when there's a lot of wind anyway. So that's just a disadvantage there. Another thing is that you do have to keep maneuvering the boat in most scenarios, and this kind of goes back to the wind. Is that you're always having to pick up that paddle, move it, whatever direction you need to kind of stay in the area you want to. So there's a lot of maneuvering. So then I want to go ahead and talk about the pedal kayak. And again, my kayak is a Native Watercraft Titan 12. I got this boat, like I said, about a year and a half ago. It's kind of an interesting story, just a little bit of information that, may or not be of interest, but it's kind of cool. The way I got the boat, or what had happened was, it was right around my birthday, and my wife had sent me a text, and she said, "Hey, you haven't given me any thoughts on what you want for your birthday, so send me any ideas." And just for fun, I went to the Native Titan website and sent her a picture and said, "This is what I want." And I couldn't believe it. She actually says, "Okay, start looking at prices, and we'll do this." So the point there is, if your spouse asks you what you want for your birthday, for Christmas, don't be afraid to shoot for the moon, because you never know. Anyway, so a little bit about the advantages. Again, this is my personal thoughts here. The first thing, and this is a big deal, is going to be you're going to be much faster on the water. It's going to be easier to get across the lakes that you're going to be on. That was huge for me. The other thing is going to be hands-free maneuvering, so you can fish at the same time you're moving from one area to the other. You're not having to worry about moving that paddle. You're actually able to fish while you're moving around, so that's always a great advantage as well. The other thing is that, although I wouldn't, now this is something I think that happens a lot, is people get an idea, hey, if I just get a pedal kayak, I'll never have to worry about wind again. That is definitely not the case. There are times when I won't even think about getting my kayak out there. And usually for me, and this is probably a personal preference. Well, before I say that, what I would say, and I've heard other people say this before, is if you don't feel safe on the water, then that's going to kind of be your gauge of whether or not you should go out. And that's going to be with any boat, any kayak. But for me, my personal preferences is anything over 12 miles an hour as far as winds. I'm probably going to stay off the water. But with that said, if I was still in my paddle kayak, I usually didn't like to be any winds over, 8 miles an hour. It would get really hard to handle. So the paddle kayak definitely does better when it comes to some of those higher winds that you might not be able to handle otherwise. The disadvantages, and there are some disadvantages for sure, and I'm sure you could probably think about a few of those already, but probably the first one is that they are typically going to be a higher starting point financially. Average, I mean, I know I may be missing this, so feel free to let me know if you've got some different ideas or you've seen some different prices. But I'm going to say probably the minimum starting out for a pedal kayak is going to be around $1,200, and I know for Hobies they can go all the way up to $5,000-$6,000 and probably even more than that. So they can definitely be pricey. They can also be fairly heavy, hard to move around with one person. So there's different ways that you can kind of conquer that problem, but they can be heavy. The other thing is they're not so great on rivers, and that's because of the pedal drive. Usually the pedal drive is about 12 to 14 inches, which is on lakes isn't a big deal, but on rivers a lot of times you're going to have a lot of rocks and stuff that you may not be expecting, and so that's not always going to be a great help for you when you're on rivers. And the other thing, and this is disadvantage number 4, is that even with a pedal kayak, you're still going to want to be able to upgrade. You're still going to want to spend money, and there's always going to be something new that you're going to see on YouTube that's going to make me think, hey, I need to do this, I need to do that. And that's just the way it is with any boat or any kayak that you have. Now, something else that I'm thinking about, and this is going to be applicable to either style kayak, pedal or paddle, and this is another question that we see quite a bit in the Kayak Fishing Dads Facebook group, is, hey, I just bought this kayak. What else do I need to get started? What are some suggestions? So I thought I'd kind of go through some of the top suggestions that I see everybody responding, and this is pretty much common sense. And again, this is going to be applicable regardless of what type of watercraft you have, what type of kayak. So the first thing, probably the most important thing, is a quality PFD. And in this case, I would say preferably it's going to be one that's designed for kayaking. I've had, when I first started out, it was just a standard life jacket that you would use on a boat. And to be quite honest, it was very uncomfortable. I couldn't go very long without having to take it off and just kind of stretch. They're regular life vests are not going to do good on a kayak. So you want to get one that is specifically designed for that. My kayak, or my vest, is a Chinook, NRS Chinook. I've had that PFD, I want to say, for about 6 years now, and highly recommend that brand. If not, find whatever is going to work for you. But again, for me, my personal preference is the Chinook, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Next is going to be a kayak cart. I mentioned the fact that the pedal kayaks in particular can be really heavy. So you're going to have a kayak cart of some sort, and even with the paddle. I also had a cart as well. They can get heavy at times. The next thing is some sort of safety alarm. For me, I always carry a whistle. I have a whistle attached to my life jacket, and then I also carry an air horn. Fortunately, I haven't had to use those before, but it's good to know that they are there, and I think that's something that, again, one of those common sense things you would always want to have. The other thing is, and this is probably more so for the pedal kayak, and it goes back to talking about the wind and how you're going to be moved a lot. If there's any kind of wind, you're going to be moving around a lot. And what that is an anchor and an anchor trolley. I think that I probably got mine within a few weeks of having my Ascend, because I knew immediately that it was not going to be fun just trying to stay in one area for a while. It was hard, and the first thing that it took a while, but I figured out, hey, I need to get an anchor. So I would recommend that as kind of one of the first purchases along with your boat. It's just kind of makes sense to do that. So anyway, those are some of the kind of the top, I guess, 4 must-haves that I see. These are things that I've thought about, and I see quite a bit when people ask these questions in the Facebook group, and other folks are responding. These are the top responses that we see all the time. So anyway, there you have it. I know this has kind of been short and sweet, but also to the point. And as I said, I know there's a lot of information, probably a ton of questions that you have. So do not be shy about reaching out to me in the comments. Ask any questions that you have regarding my changes from from pedal to paddle to pedal, and kind of how I got started. What was my mindset when I got into it? What was I looking for? I mean, anything at all. There's pretty much no limits when it comes to the questions regarding this subject that I'd be happy to answer for you. And again, I do speak from experience, and that's not something that some people can say. So I'm sure that in my case, when I'm looking and doing research, I always like to hear from folks that have been on the journey before me. Those are always going to be the best accounts and best information you can get. So once again, I appreciate you all tuning in. Hopefully this has been helpful, and we'll check you next time. You all have a great and blessed day, and also have a happy Easter. God bless you.